Hey, you guys, this is Josh.
And Carolyn.
With Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat, Food for Thought.
We are going to be answering your questions today from the last several videos that we've done.
Along with a super cool announcement.
A big announcement?
Yeah, that's right. But let's get into a little chit chat first, and then we'll get to that.
The suspense. Well, what have you been up to? You go first.
Oh, getting seeds in the ground. Try to get seeds in the ground once a week. And hey, we're starting to get a harvest of some of our root crops, our fresh eating root crops.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And fine-tuning a new sprinkler system. I think I've finally found a solution for a large garden that I'm happy with. It's still in trial mode, but I'm excited about this.
This is a major step forward for us because hand watering a large garden is challenging.
Well, it is. And we get a lot of questions about watering, and I prefer overhead watering. Okay. And there's times when that's not the best thing to do. But overall, try to mimic nature. And so I prefer that. But finding a solution that works well, that waters evenly, that doesn't water too heavily, too lightly. There's a lot there to watering. Right. And so been looking for a system for a lot of years and just found one, and been working on installing it the last several weeks. Okay. And just in time, because it looks like it's finally going to heat up here in North Idaho. I hope so.
It has been a very wet, cool spring here, so now we're just starting to need that sprinkler system. But I know everybody wants to know, what is the sprinkler system? Are you going to talk about it now, or are you still in trial mode?
No, I'm still trialing it. Want to use it. Maybe later in the season we'll talk about it, certainly before next season. But I want to make sure, see how it holds up, how it works through the summer. All right. And make sure I'm thoroughly happy with it before I throw out any names.
Yeah, we really like trialing everything before we give you names to make sure that it's actually going to work well for the long term.
That's right.
Good.
Yeah. So what about you? What's going on?
Oh, well, we are at that time of year where we are getting about 6 gallons of milk every single day. That's a lot of milk. Even for a large family, that's a lot of milk. So I have been making a lot of cheese. That is what you do when you get that much milk.
Loving it. Just getting into some of that, even that fresh cheese that hasn't aged much yet was really good. I had that on a sandwich the other day.
Yeah, it's very, very tasty. We're doing about 2 7-gallon batches of a cheddar every week right now. So that gives us about a 7-pound wheel. Each one of those is about a 7-pound wheel of cheddar. And then we're doing about the same amount in mozzarella every week. We're using about half of that fresh because we like to have pizza nights every week, and sticking about half of that in the freezer for pizza nights in the winter when the cow is drier and not giving as much milk and we're not making as much cheese. So between that and keeping yogurt and buttermilk and all the great cultured milks and products on the table is keeping us, and butter.
And you're about to get inundated with carrots, beets, all baby, all young. But I'm looking forward to that because this is the first season, I think, where we have got some of our garden planning down, and we're going to have young carrots, young beets, young potatoes, and young onions all ready to gather.
And peas at the same time.
Peas.
I'm excited about that.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about those root crops because you make up a great, great roasted veggies with those root crops and onions that is really simple and really, really good.
Very delicious.
Yeah, and so that's just a fun stage in the garden right now.
And of course, those baby beets make those pickled beets, and they're so good.
Those are like candy.
Yeah. Yep. So are we just stalling the announcement?
No, let's get to it.
Okay. Big announcement.
That's right.
The podcast is here.
That is right. The Pantry Chat is now about to be a podcast.
Yes.
That is first episode.
The first episode is coming out August 16th.
Right.
But right now, on your favorite podcasting app.
So whether you like iTunes, Spotify,
Stitcher, whatever it is that you're listening to, you can go over right now right now.
We'll leave you the links down below.
And you can search for the Pantry Chat, which is going to be a podcast. Right now, there's a trailer episode out. So if you could please go ahead and subscribe to that. That way you don't miss an episode. But if you have been listening to the Pantry Chats and you love them, you know what kind of content is in them, it would be really great if right now you would go over and leave a review. That really will help the podcast kind of get off to its best start and really help us out.
And if you would, share it. Tell with anybody you know that you think might be interested in this, or maybe doesn't sit down and watch video a whole lot, but would love the audio version of this, which is why we're doing it, because we've had a lot of requests for audio, for a podcast and audio. So if you would just share that with everybody you can to really help kick this off real well, that would be fantastic.
I'm excited about it because I like podcasts, especially if I'm driving. Sometimes I'm driving to town to go do an errand or something, and I have a quiet car, and I can actually listen to something. So I'm really excited because I know I like podcasts. So do us a favor, jump over, even if you think you're going to continue watching the video version.
Which it will be available. I was just going to say, people are going to ask that. We are going to be right here doing the same thing. Format might change just a little bit so that it can double up as the podcast, but we're still going to be right here on video for you as well.
Absolutely. So even if you think you're going to just keep watching the video, if you would do us the favor of jumping over, hitting that subscribe button on a podcasting app and leaving a review about the Pantry Chat, that would really help us out. So
exciting stuff. We're really excited about this. Hope you guys are too.
Yeah.
And I guess we better get into it.
We have a bunch of questions
today.
Right.
Yeah, from you guys. So got some good ones here.
Okay.
And let's see here where we're starting with Beth Ann Shad. On Pantry Chat number 55. That one's generated a lot of questions. I can't even remember what the title of that was, but
do you know what number we're on right now?
I don't know.
I don't either.
No.
Okay.
I think it's it's our team that's tracking that for us. So they're doing great.
They are.
I don't have a handle on it. Okay. My questions about chickens are, why can't you just let some of the eggs get fertilized, hatch those chicks, and let the hens go broody and raise the chicks? One, and why is it necessary to give them a pre-ground pellet mix instead of letting hens get their food the natural way?
These are great questions, and these are questions that people who have been raising, I've had this discussion with many people who are raising chickens and trying to figure out how to get back to maybe a little more natural,
breeding chickens is what she's describing, instead of resilient, just buying them,
right? Exactly,
or hatching them. And you can, but it is a journey. Yeah. And it is a journey, and it takes time. It takes finding the right chickens for your environment that will, both set and then turn out to be good layers. There's a whole lot there. So you can do that, but it's not just something that you're going to go buy some chickens and have that happen and work, because it's been bred out of them for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Both the setting and the mothering has been bred out pretty hard. And there are definitely breeds out there that will still set and mother really well. But you have to be prepared. And this is something that we have learned the hard way over lots of years of trying this. You have to be prepared to let a hen fail for at least a year. Mm-hmm. The first time she sets a clutch of eggs, she's probably either going to get up too early, or even if she hatches out the babies, she's probably going to lose them or not take care of them. So you kind of have to be prepared for that. But once she does that once, it seems like they get better with a little bit of practice, right?
They do, right. So you've got to either breed into it, and there's lots of different things along the way, or you've got to find somebody that has been doing this for a long time and has a flock that is naturally setting and mothering.
Right.
And we've met very few people that have gotten that far. I know they're out there, and if you're out there, we'd love to hear from you, but not a lot of people have gotten that far. And I know today I hear more about it.
Yes.
I hear more people working on it, but that's a journey.
It really is. Now, the other side of that is that what you get from those chicks is not like getting all your hens, because you're going to get a straight run. You're going to get males and females. So you need to be prepared to handle those extra males, be ready to butcher them off, and know that it's going to take at least double the amount of chicks that you need for your hens to get enough hens as replacement hens. So there are actually a lot of challenges in getting that to work well in a cyclical fashion.
Well, and having enough chickens to do that while you're still trying to get egg production in. So there's a lot of nuances to that, and it's definitely doable. But we've unfortunately bred that out of the chickens and gone with a different model. So
now let me give one more thought. If you do want to pursue that and try that, one of the things that we have found that really helps the success of hatching out, allowing your hens to hatch out their own chicks is to have a separate housing location for those hens. If they're just in the big, coop with all the chickens, or if they're just out in the yard, your success rate is going to go way down. So having a small coop where they can hatch out and have a safe spot is really important.
It really is. And that's one of the reasons we've not gotten too far through that, is just not having the overall infrastructure. And we're starting to develop that now. But that takes putting the pieces together. And lastly, why is it necessary to give them a pre-ground pellet mix instead of letting the hens get their food the natural way? Well, you can let them get their food the natural way.
We've the natural done that. Way being scratching,
just foraging,
out
right?
In the yard,
and that's a great way. Our chickens actually do that. Depending on your environment, and in most environments, they're probably not going to get the protein they need to produce the amount of eggs that you want. Now, that's going to depend on your needs. If you've got a whole lot of chickens and your egg needs are low, then you might be able to do that. But here's one of the other things is you got to be careful how you control it, because the chickens will start laying their eggs all over the place. And so again, there's systems you need to have in place, and you need to keep those protein levels up. But you can totally do that. We've done it, and we've experimented with going. We took 1 year where we just totally let them forage. We had a little bit of supplemental feed, and we were in a good environment. We had lots of forage out there for them, lots of bugs. They were healthy. Egg production did go down, probably partly because they were laying them all over the place. We didn't have a yard. You can keep them in the mornings, is what some people do, and then let them out to forage. But for most people, they want a system that's a little bit more reliable, and that gets a little wild, if you will. And that's okay. That does work. You just may not get a consistent egg production the same as if you blend that, which is what we do, blending those protein feeds, those good quality feeds with a good coop, and yet still letting them get out and range.
Well, I think you just touched on two really important things right there. And one is that if you do that, if you go to just all natural forage feed for the chickens, you're going to need a lot more chickens to get you the same amount of eggs as if you were doing a higher production model with a high protein feed. The other thing is that you have to make sure that they have enough space to forage enough to get the food that they need. Otherwise, you're just essentially starving your chickens, and you don't want to be doing that.
And how much space depends on your environment. How much vegetation do you have? That vegetation's then going to harbor the bugs, because the chickens, they won't eat a lot more than about 20% of their diet in vegetation. But so they then need to be getting bugs and pecking and scratching, and you need the space for that. So one thing I want to end with here, though, is that while we do feed them a high protein mix, we also want to make sure that they can free range or get out in the natural environment. We want to move away from just having a chicken coop with a dirt lot and just feeding them a pellet feed or a grain feed. That is not the best thing for the chicken. It's very good for them, even if they're not getting all of their feed, to get out into nature and to be able to eat some plant matter and to be able to scratch and find some bugs. That just makes them healthier and is good for them.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see here. That one's done. Okay, Debbie Flores, again from Pantry Chat number 55. Can you freeze the milk to store it if there is too much?
Yes, you can. In fact, we do that often because we let the cow dry off for about 3 months out of the year, 2 to 3 months. The real key to storing milk in the freezer is to skim it first. And the reason for that is because the cream, the fat, does never quite reincorporates into the milk after it's been frozen.
Yeah, it gets to be a different consistency.
So it gets almost grainy. So some people will defrost the milk and then they'll heat it just slightly, and that kind of helps to reincorporate the cream. But I find it's the easiest and the best method to just skim it really thoroughly. We skim it when we're going to freeze it. We actually skim it a lot more than we would skim it just for drinking it out of the refrigerator. We try to get most of that butter fat off of there. And then we just freeze it in the Ziploc gallon-sized bags. We put half a gallon of milk into a gallon-sized bag and make sure that we lay it completely flat when we freeze it. That way it's stackable because storing milk in the freezer actually takes up quite a bit of space.
Yeah, it doesn't work good in jars.
No, it does not work good in jars. I have not found a glass solution yet that it works well in. So it's really best if you can get it flat, and then it's very stackable so you can get a lot of gallons of milk into a small space in a freezer.
Yeah, it's worked real good for us. Okay, Grammy's Pie Face 1. Hey, Grammy, on preparing for ongoing COVID realities. What is a good lung tonic? Her husband's having some issues.
Okay, as with all herbal things, I'm going to give you some names of some herbs, but you're going to have to do the research yourself to make sure that it's a good fit for your body in particular, and any other medication or any other concerns, medical issues that you might have.
We need to say you need to check with your physician to make sure that anything you're going to take doesn't what's the word? You know, the medical word. Contraindicate, right?
Yeah. If you're not sure how to do that research, you may want to check out my series, Healthy Healing at Home. I talk about how to research each herb to know that it's a right fit for
there'll be
you.
a link for that down below. That's a free
training series on herbalism. But let's talk about some herbs that are really, really good for lungs.
Which we've got a little experience with.
We do.
I have some lung issues, and Carolyn has doctored me since before we were married.
A long time. So some that are really good and really well known, either by themselves or in combination with each other, would be one of our favorites in our household is the mullein plant. In fact, I think I have a video coming out real soon or just out or something on mullein. Okay. So that is a really, really good herb. That is the mullein leaf. It grows wild in a lot of the United States and maybe beyond. So it's a good plant to know about. Another one is marshmallow. My handy
marshmallows? Seriously? Like the ones you buy in the store?
Toast them over the campfire and make s'mores.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you're going to be healthy.
I want to use that.
No, the herb marshmallow or any of the mallows. And my favorite trick for this is that hollyhocks, those beautiful old-fashioned cottage garden flowers. They are a really, really close cousin of marshmallows, and they're completely interchangeable medicinally. So you can grow hollyhocks and use them for your medicine.
Hey, love it.
Very, very good for your lungs. Another one to look at would be elecampane, which is a really, really good lung tonic. But there are other things that you can do for your lungs, like your breathing exercises, right? This is really important. Strengthen your lungs. Make sure you exhale as much as you can. Because what that makes you do is inhale all the way, and it strengthens your lungs.
It just feels good too.
It feels good too. It gives you a shot of oxygen, which just makes your whole body feel good. Do that multiple times during the day, especially if you have weak lungs. So those are some of the things that you can do.
Got to remember that. Take deep breaths more.
Yeah.
You got to remind me to do that.
I got to remember to do it too. It's really good.
All right. Real good. Okay. So moving on from, here's a question from Brian Awesome Sauce.
Awesome Sauce.
What's up, Awesome Sauce? On PC number 55, Pantry Chat number 55, what kind of wild game do you harvest? I think I remember deer hunting mentioned in a few videos, wondering if you supplement your freezer with any other. Love the videos. Thanks, Brian. Deer is the main one. We've got that pretty accessible for us and easy. Occasionally some wild turkeys. We have those around. And I do enjoy hunting, but with our lifestyle, we don't get out and take bigger, longer hunting trips. So I've hunted elk a few times. I've yet to get one, but they're here.
I'm still waiting for the bear.
Yeah, the bear too. So that's just finding the time to get out there and hunt.
It is. We do try to keep some fish in the freezer.
Well, I was going to say next. Yeah, we fish a bit, trout, not anything that I'd say we rely on, but enough to supplement and to enjoy. Yeah, and that's right now. That's about it. Yeah. We don't have a lot of rabbits here, or some of the smaller game. Not a lot of bird game.
Although we have a growing number of hunters in our household.
We do. We're going to have, I've got 2 more to add this year to get out deer
just got
hunting.
through their hunter safety course and they're ready to go try hunting.
They are. So it's
good.
Yep. Got to get out there and target practice.
Yep.
Okay. Esther's gardening adventures. That sounds like fun. Hey, Esther. On inspecting your garden for a successful season. I love going out at dusk and just sitting in the garden, but also just inspecting a few times a day. I find all kinds of little things to do. I notice tools in your pocket. What do you take outside with you on those inspections? Well, my reliable that I almost always have.
In your pocket.
I do. I have them
You've
here.
Been out in the garden this
are
morning.
My pruners. I love these little hand pruners by Opino. They make great knives, great garden tools. So that's my main one everywhere I go, because usually I'm trimming something along the way. And then just a good spade. Good spade like this. This one is from Homestead Iron. You want some tools that'll last forever. Homestead Iron is great.
I mean, you see how sturdy this thing is. It's actually, is it hand done? It's all hand forged?
It's a combination. There's a lot of hand forging, but because they've got to be able to make some money at what they do some machine forging as well. But these are heirloom quality tools. They're not very expensive for what they are. And this is the last little garden spade I'll ever need. Yeah. As long as I take care of it. It's just amazingly strong. You're not going to break it. I can't tell you how many of these are broken off. Right. When you don't feel
bend,
like they should.
When you go to dig into something too hard and it bends. I've had that happen on so many.
So those, along with a pocket knife, which is also an Opinel, I like my Opinel pocket knives, that's the mainstay.
That's what you keep with
that's
you.
What I need.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, let's see here. All right, NS on 30 plus book recommendations video. Okay. Can anyone recommend a good book for food preservation? Well, we could recommend a lot of those, and I think got a few into that video, but not canning or fermenting, but how to store potatoes and other vegetables for a few months. So that's essentially cellaring. Yeah.
Can you believe we didn't get those books into that video?
I know, we skipped over those.
You have to stop. You can't just keep adding things into a video, but there are a lot of really good books on root cellaring. Here are the top 2. This one, Root Cellaring, Natural Cold Storage of Fruits and Vegetables. We'll put the link down below, by Mike and Nancy Bubel. Is really good if you're looking for alternative directions to root cellaring aside from building a traditional root cellar.
So kind of some common storage techniques and ways to work without a technical root cellar.
Yes, like keep your produce harvest fresh in your own basement, porch, garage, or closet hideaway. So they've got a lot of good stuff.
Well, and this is really important, you guys, because a lot of people think they can't store, some of these crops because they don't have it. We don't have a technical one. We're making plans to build one, which we'll refer to the next book here. But we have stored food for a lot of years, making do, and this book will help you do that.
It also, I really like how it goes through the different vegetables and tells you how to best store those vegetables. So it really covers that.
Very cool.
If you're looking to actually build a root cellar, The Complete Guide to Your New Root Cellar by Julie Fryer is a great book, complete with plans, all sorts of amazing bits of information on how to build a great root cellar, how to work with it, how to take care of it.
And the different environments you need and how to build them for different, different crops.
Different crops, exactly.
And this is something we are hoping to tackle in a major way. I've waited because I wanted to do this right and permanent, and not play around with the in-between model. So we've made do with what we have, and we're getting ready to dive in hopefully next year and build a pretty seriously large root cellar. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's exciting to plan.
Cool. Okay. All right. Moving along. Fawn Bowden on early summer garden tour. How do you keep rabbits and deer from eating them? I don't remember what them is, but to do with the garden, I assume. You don't have anything protecting them that I can tell. Actually, we do, at least in our main crop garden, that is fenced, and that has deer fence, which means it's 6 foot high. That was here when we got here. And, our dogs do a pretty good job. A lot of places we've been, we haven't needed fencing. The dogs have just kind of kept everything from the rabbits and deer off. It's been the gophers that are a challenge, but the cats take care of those critters.
They did. I don't know if you caught in the last cottage garden tour, we actually caught Bob the farm
I heard
cat
about that. I didn't
with
see
a
it.
gopher
Yeah.
in project. That's good because those gophers are killing off my valerian out there. I have a suspicion that the cats are able to catch them because they've eaten the valerian root. If you guys know what valerian root is, it makes you sleepy.
The gophers
That's
are
what
moving
you
a little
take
slow.
it for.
They're not on their guard.
I think they had a snack and then they had a nap and they got a little vulnerable to the cats.
So obviously Bob the cat was hunting gophers before he ate the catnip, because I see him out there rolling around on the catnip sometimes and go, well, no wonder you're not getting any gophers.
Don't ask Bob to work after he gets into his catnip. He's not very effective. Okay.
All righty. So yes,
on.
we do. Now, Carolyn's cottage garden, we don't. But again, we've got cats, we've got dogs, and we don't have the deer pressure or rabbit pressure that close in right next to the house.
Right.
And really want to recommend that you always have a garden, a kitchen garden, cottage garden. Those are, can be mixed as what we have. Right up as close to the house as possible if you can. You just want some things at arm's reach, and that also helps. Just that proximity helps keep the critters away.
Right.
All righty.
A bunch of kids running all over the place helps too, I gotta say.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Silver chopsticks. We've got some really interesting folks commenting today. The
Great names.
Silver
I
chopsticks.
love
Love it.
Very
That's
creative.
fun. On not sun-dried tomatoes.
Yes.
Okay. I find this recipe so wonderful and I do want to try it, but why do so many recommend a vinegar bath before storing them in olive oil? Is this method safe without the vinegar? If so, I'd prefer it over using vinegar, as I don't want to alter the taste of the tomatoes.
Okay, so here is the concern. There is a concern that botulism can live in fresh vegetables that have been submerged in olive oil. So there's long-standing old-fashioned preservation techniques where you take something, say, like a pesto, something fresh, and you just coat it with olive oil and stick it on your shelf and preserve it. And amazingly enough, the flavors of those things actually preserve really well.
Wonderfully well.
The problem with it, though, is that botulism spores can live in a high moisture content. And of course, they thrive, and that's where they get dangerous, is in a oxygen-free type of setting, like a liquid submerged in olive oil, covered in olive oil. So I actually don't know if there's ever been any sickness cases found for people getting sick in that scenario, but the US government says that it is not safe because of this concern for botulism in them. Now, where there gets to be a confusion is that people maybe overgeneralize that you just can't store anything in olive oil then.
Right.
But a sun-dried tomato that is completely dried has no moisture in it. The botulism cannot live, it cannot grow in that environment. So therefore, you can take a completely dried tomato or tomato slice and store it in olive oil and have it still be safe from botulism. So you do not need to wash your tomatoes in vinegar in order to safely store them, as long as they are completely dry. There's no moisture left in them. People are doing that as an extra layer of safety against botulism. There's really no evidence that just rinsing a vegetable of any sort in vinegar would protect from botulism at all. So it's kind of a misguided approach anyways, in my opinion. But absolutely not necessary when you're dealing with something that is completely dry and there's no moisture in it.
So I guess to summarize a little bit, this is one of those topics where there is a lot of, you're talking hundreds, if not thousands of years of historical use. And yet we have some data that contradicts that.
Yeah.
And so you really just need to study it and do what you feel comfortable with.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But this storing the dried tomatoes in olive oil is absolutely safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, as long as they're totally dry.
Okay, Janice Crowell on planning. That's planning. Your preserving year. You could call it planting. You mentioned freeze drying. Do you own a freeze dryer? Do you think it is worth the money? What kind do you recommend? I really want to freeze dry, but I'm not sure about the investment.
Right.
We kind of agree with you. We would love to freeze dry, but it's a big investment.
And not only is it a big initial investment, but the energy cost that goes into running it all the time for the amount of food that you can preserve at one time is actually pretty high.
Pretty high. So we love the idea. There's a lot of benefits to it. It preserves the quality of the food very well. It makes it very usable later. And so there are a lot of good factors to it, but it's expensive to get into. The units are generally pretty small. If you're a single person or a two-person family, even that, it would be a fair amount of work to put up a lot of the food.
And by the units are pretty small, we don't mean the units are small, because they're actually
the units are kind of big.
But the amount of food that you can preserve at a time in them are actually pretty small. So it's generally quite a bit smaller than your average larger dehydrator.
Right. So. Now, the costs have come down, and you know, supply and demand is changing. So I think the costs are going to continue to come down, and I'm hoping we're going to see where it comes into an area that it's worth playing for us.
Yeah.
But not there yet. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Candace Johnston on preparing for ongoing COVID realities. You are preparing, right, you guys? Can you grow the herbs and cut back periodically and preserve the plant/seeds, root for future use? And will it contain the same strength as fresh? I assume she means as using fresh.
As using fresh. All right, Candace, this is a great question. And the rule of thumb, especially if you're making tinctures, is that fresh is always best. You're always going to get the full spectrum and better quality fresh.
Sure.
But it's still really good dried. For most herbs, it's still very, very good dried. The notable exception to that is your echinacea root, especially the common echinacea that most people dry or grow in their own gardens. That really, really loses quality as soon as it's dried. But aside from that, you really have a pretty good range of the herbal benefits stay in the plants when they are dried for later use.
And you're going to need to dry them because you often are going to need them when you can't get them fresh.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So especially for a tea or some application like that, then you really do need to dry it. You're not going to do something else with it.
Right.
But for a tincture, if you have your own garden, it's really great if you can just preserve those herbs in alcohol rather than drying them first. So that's how you make that tincture, is putting them right in alcohol when they are still fresh. That's going to give you the best product at the end.
And you teach how to do that, I think, in the herbal medicine cabinet class?
Yes, we do. And the new part that we're adding right now, the flues component to the class, I'm actually going to be teaching you how to preserve them in glycerin as well for people who don't want the alcohol. There's a lot of people who don't want that either for themselves or for giving to their children. And of course, the glycerin tastes a lot better because it's sweet. It's kind of like honey. So I'll be teaching a glycerite as well as an alcohol tincture in the class.
Well, and to wrap it up, that is not in the class yet, and it's going to be, but when it goes in the class, the price of the class is going to go up.
We're adding a whole nother section to the class.
So if you're interested in that, go buy it now, because once you own a class of ours, you get all future upgrades. We don't hold that back or charge extra for that. So if that's something you're interested in, go get a hold of it now, because sometime in the next couple of weeks,
2 weeks,
that's going to get added in, and then the price is going to go up. So check that out.
Grab it now.
And that is it for today.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you soon.
Goodbye.